The Millionaire's employee breaks all odds with autistic girl's first smile after doctors give up. Every corner of the mansion screamed power. Marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed walls hiding secrets thicker than the years piled behind them. Daniel moved like a ghost through the vast halls, unseen, unheard, overlooked. Yet inside this maze of privilege and cold expectations, he carried a weight heavier than the mansion's ornate ceilings. Self-doubt eating away at his every step. Daniel worked for Jonathan Reed, a titan in the business world whose wealth filled every room and emptied every heart around him. Jonathan's daughter, Lily, was another story, a silent shadow nestled in a nursery that felt more like a fortress. Years of specialists, therapy sessions, glossy promises, all crashed against the unbroken barrier of Lily's severe autism. She didn't cry out, didn't respond, didn't touch. Doctors had thrown in the towel. But the silence inside the mansion was suffocating, thick as the silence Daniel felt crushing his chest. One afternoon, while cleaning the sunlit nursery, Daniel found himself drawn to a tiny music box left spinning on a shelf. Its soft tune filled the air with something almost magical. Lily sat amidst her toys, eyes vacant, a statue frozen in time. Then, without warning, her rigid fingers twitched, reaching toward the spinning box. Daniel's breath hitched. A burst of hope flared and dimmed, so fast it felt like a trick. But the mansion held its secrets tight. Whispered rumors drifted in the hallways. Talk of tensions buried under polite smiles, of battles fought in rooms behind heavy drapes. Daniel soon learned this fragile world was a battleground, one where Lily's progress threatened more than anyone admitted. His every attempt to connect was met with cold stares, silent warnings. The family's walls were thicker than stone, their eyes sharp enough to cut. Despite the danger bubbling below the surface, Daniel couldn't stop. His heart hammered, hands trembling, as he developed new, unconventional ways to reach Lily. Ways no doctor dared try. It was more than duty now. It was desperate, clinging hope in the dark. Then, one evening, something impossible cracked through the silence. Lily's lips twitched, first a flicker, then a fragile, impossible smile. The room caught its breath. Daniel felt a lump in his throat, choking everything else out. Around him, the mansion seemed to hold still, as if even its walls leaned in to catch this miracle. But that smile was also a warning. Whispers grew louder, eyes narrowed. Secrets began to unravel, sharp enough to threaten everything Daniel had quietly built. Would this fragile breakthrough hold? Or was it just the first crack before the whole world shattered? Daniel stood caught between hope and suspicion, strength and fear. The mansion's shadows lengthened, and choices loomed that could change everything. The game was far from over. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Just as Daniel's heart soared with the weight of Lily's smile, the stillness shattered. The door swung open with a force that rattled the room. In marched Jonathan Reed, face flushed, eyes bulging like he'd seen a ghost. No polite greeting, no mask of calm, just raw fury. "What the hell's going on here?" he bellowed. The air thickened, the music box falling silent, its magical tune snuffed out. Lily's beam faltered, slipping from her fragile lips, like a candle flickering in a storm. Daniel's heart raced. Panic clawed at his throat. "Mr. Reed, Stay out of this," Jonathan shot back, pointing a finger that felt like a bolt of lightning, aimed directly at Daniel's chest. The man's fury filled the elegantly decorated room, swirling like a tempest. "You're not a doctor. You can't just mess with my daughter's treatment." Daniel flinched as anger swirled into fear. Yet Lily, oh sweet Lily, her smile wavered, but didn't vanish entirely. Daniel had fought through the shadows of her silence. That connection felt sacred. "I was just trying to." Jonathan cut him off, eyes dark with something deeper than rage. "Trying to what? Play her therapist? You're just a housekeeper." A pulse of hurt shot through Daniel, sharp as a knife. But before he could respond, the air crackled with tension. Jonathan's phone buzzed, a harsh sound slicing through the thick silence. He snatched it, glancing at the screen. As he read, his face went pale, an expression of horror, replacing the anger like light snuffed by dark clouds. "What's wrong?" Daniel barely managed the whisper, dread pooling in his stomach. Jonathan's voice trembled. "It can't be." He dropped his phone, eyes wide. "No, no, this is impossible." Daniel felt the chill radiating from Jonathan, creeping into his bones. Once held together by wealth and control, the mansion now felt like a fragile shell ready to fracture. "What is it?" In that one moment, everything shifted. Jonathan staggered back, the walls around him closing in as he gasped. "Lily. Lily isn't." "Lily isn't what?" The word hung like heavy fog. In a voice barely above a whisper, Jonathan finished. "She's not mine." The statement hung in the air. A bomb dropped in the heart of silence. The world tilted for Daniel, the ground beneath him uncertain, unstable. He felt dizzy, breathless, the room spinning like a lost dream. "No." Daniel's voice trembled, disbelief crashing over him. "What are you saying?" Jonathan's expression twisted into something broken. "I had my suspicions, and now I know. She belongs to someone else. Someone I thought." Before he finished, the mansion echoed with hushed gasps. Servants peering cautiously around doors, confusion dripping into the atmosphere. Daniel's mind spiraled, trying to wrap itself around the weight of Jonathan's words. Lily was the child of secrets. Everything he thought he knew shattered like glass. But who was she? Who did she belong to? Daniel stepped closer, fear replacing anger, need igniting questions in the void. "Where's her mother?" Jonathan's face went ashen, eyes glassy. She's gone. But my whole life, it was a lie." While his heart raced, every piece of the elegant puzzle of privilege seemed to reassemble in brutal clarity. Behind every wall of gold, a heart-wrenching truth waited. And as Lily stared blankly, eyes wide, Daniel could feel the chilling air of secrets that might floor empires. What other truths lay hidden in the shadows? Would he dare dig deeper, risking everything for a child who might not even know who she was? The silence grew heavy, pregnant with unanswered questions. Dan's heart thudded painfully, knowing the game had completely changed. They were standing on the brink of something huge, and he could only hope they wouldn't fall into the abyss. "Lily isn't mine." The words echoed, thick and heavy, trembling in the air. Daniel felt his heart thump wildly. Was this really happening? Jonathan staggered back, his expression twisting with a mix of fear and confusion. The room felt colder, shadows inching closer. Daniel looked at Lily, her eyes wide, unblinking, as if she were a fragile bird caught in a storm. The walls of the mansion, once sturdy and protective, now loomed like jagged cliffs ready to crumble. Daniel's mind raced. Secrets were unraveling. But why did this feel like the tip of an iceberg? Who is she then? He wondered aloud, words spilling from his lips, desperate for clarity. Jonathan's gaze dropped, fixating on the floor. "I didn't want to believe it. I thought I was losing my mind. But the truth? It's darker than any of us knew." Before Daniel could respond, the tension in the room thickened. Again, a sense that something more was lurking beneath. Just then, a raucous sound shattered the fragile silence. A window swung open unexpectedly. A gust of wind screamed through the nursery, scattering toys like fallen leaves. Daniel jumped, his heart racing faster than his thoughts could catch up. Outside, chaos erupted. Police lights flashed, blue and red strobing through the windows, piercing the calm with urgent blips and whirs. "What's happening?" he gasped, reclaiming the breath that had fled his chest. Jonathan's face paled even more, his panic morphing into something deeper. It can't be. No, this is not how it ends. He rushed to the window, eyes scanning the disturbance below. But a cold realization washed over Daniel. Jonathan's reaction signaled more than just
fear of police. Suddenly, Jonathan's phone buzzed again, startling them both. He fumbled to grab it, his hands shaking. He glanced at the screen, eyes widening, raw terror etched across his face. "What is it?" Daniel pressed, feeling the knots tighten in his stomach. Jonathan's response came in a whisper, barely audible. "They know about Lily. The press is here." The walls felt as if they were closing in. Was it possible? Had their family secrets spilled out beyond the mansion's confines? Everything Daniel thought he knew felt like sand slipping through his fingers. Whispers floated up the hallway, tight bunched clusters of servants peeking around doors, their expressions wide-eyed and fearful. Then, the unmistakable scuff of shoes on marble echoed. Someone was approaching. Jonathan turned sharply, his fierce gaze locking onto Daniel's. "You need to leave, now." "Leave? Why? I can't abandon her."
But resolve in Daniel's voice rang strong through the chaos. But Jonathan shook his head, gripping his shoulder tightly. The urgency in his eyes was chilling. "Her life depends on you being gone," Jonathan insisted, the ragged edge of his voice cracking. "They're not here for me. They're looking for you." Daniel's breath hitched, a cold wave sweeping over him. "Me? Why?" "Because," Jonathan swallowed hard, "you're the only one who really knows. You've been the only one reaching her." In that instant, a chilling realization gripped Daniel fiercely. If the truth about Lily's parentage could shatter Jonathan's world, what could it do to his own? This wasn't just about protecting Lily anymore. It was about survival. The door swung open with a crash, revealing an officer, stern and unyielding. "Which one of you is Daniel?" The air thickened with dangerous possibilities. Daniel's heart raced, fear clawing at his throat. The path ahead twisted like a dark labyrinth, and he had no idea where it would lead. But one thing was clear. Every secret, every truth had just been set free. Then came the quake of the unexpected, a familiar face slipping through the chaos. Sarah, a voice from his past, her presence sending a shockwave coursing through him. "Daniel," she breathed, and her eyes held secrets of their own. Was she the key to unraveling it all? Or the next piece of the puzzle that would plunge him deeper into uncertainty? Everything felt unmoored. The boundaries between truth and deception splintered. He could either sink into the shadows or face what lay ahead. The mansion's walls whispered secrets he couldn't yet comprehend. Just as the officer's stern gaze locked onto Daniel, a sudden crash echoed from the hallway. A much more violent sound than he'd ever heard in the mansion. Glass shattered somewhere down the corridor, followed by hurried footsteps. Panic rippled through the room. It was a wave that felt impossible to contain. "Daniel," Sarah called out again, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You need to trust me." But trust? How could he trust anyone in this moment? The walls felt like they were closing in, secrets clinging to them like cloying perfume. The officer stepped closer, every inch of him emanating authority and urgency. But Daniel's attention snapped back to Sarah. She had once been his confidant, the one person who understood the shadows that danced behind his eyes. What was she doing here? "Who is she?" the officer demanded, eyes sharp on Sarah. "You're not supposed to be here." "Get away from him," Jonathan shouted as he moved protectively in front of Daniel and Lily, his anger a blazing shield, but fear flashed in his eyes. "This is a private matter." "Is it?" The officer took a step forward, the fabric of his uniform straining against the tension. "We're here because of her, the child." Daniel felt the world tilt. Him? Why was everything falling apart? "Officer," Daniel blurted, the words tumbling over each other in an urgent rush. "There's something." But suddenly, Sarah lunged forward, boldly stepping into the officer's path. "Wait, you can't take him. You don't understand what's really at stake here." The room held its breath. Secrets whispered like wind in the trees. "What do you mean?" The officer's confusion was palpable, mixed with suspicion. "Lily's not who you think she is," Sarah declared, urgency clawing at her words. Eyes darting, she continued, "She's connected to something much bigger, and I can prove it." Daniel's stomach twisted. Connected? What did she mean? How deep did the rabbit hole go? "Prove it," the officer barked, voice cracking like thunder. "We don't have time for games." In that fleeting second, everything changed. A piercing scream erupted from down the hall, wild and frantic. It was a sound raw with pain. "Move," the officer roared, pushing past Sarah, and Daniel's heart lurched as he followed instinctively, fear propelling him forward. Racing into the hallway, he found a scene that shattered his breath. One of the household staff lay sprawled on the floor, blood pooling around her. A shattered vase lay next to her, its shards glistening like broken promises. The air was thick with confusion and shock, a palpable current of dread. Willie's voice echoed softly from behind him, calling, "Daniel." "No, stay back," Jonathan warned. But fear consumed him as he rushed towards the fallen woman. "Who did this?" Daniel shouted, adrenaline roaring in his ears. Clarity slipped away as he faced a kaleidoscope of horror. Then, amidst the chaos, Sarah's eyes met his. There were so many hidden truths swirling in them, so many secrets poised on the tip of her tongue. She's not just Jonathan's daughter." But before she could finish, another officer stormed in, quickly followed by a familiar face, Dr. Evans, the specialist who had given up on Lily. Panic gripped Daniel's chest. "Why are you here?" he gasped, the connection sending chills down his spine. Dr. Evans didn't speak. He only glanced at the scene, then at Lily. His face twisted with a blend of emotions: fear, recognition, guilt. "We need to get the child out of here, now." The word child felt heavy in the air, charged with meaning. Daniel's world spun as he grappled for comprehension. Was this chaos connected to Lily? He took a step back, feeling the weight of impending decisions crash over him like a tidal wave. "Wait," Daniel found his voice, desperation clawing at his throat. "What don't I know? What's happening?" Dr. Evans looked him squarely in the eye, the gravity of his gaze like a dark well. "You think you've simply stumbled into a child's life, Daniel? What if I told you she's the key to something unimaginable?" The silence that followed was crushing. Everything shifted, leaving Daniel teetering, on the edge. Was he merely a player in a game he couldn't understand? Before he could respond, another shout echoed from the entrance. "Get down!" The world exploded into chaos. A deafening bang split the air, and a deafening rush of force knocked Daniel back. Time blurred, movement rushed past him like a hurricane. As he fell, everything flashed before his eyes. Lily's smile, Jonathan's fury, Sarah's desperate plea. What had he stepped into, and what would it cost to unravel the truth? It all crashed around him, the despair gripping him tightly as darkness closed in around the edges. Even as everything spiraled, he felt one undeniable truth pumping through his veins. This was only the beginning, and the answers would be far more dangerous than he'd ever calculated. Chaos erupted, the air thick with confusion as the deafening bang echoed in the corridor. Daniel's heart raced, a wild drumbeat against his ribs. He sprawled on the floor, disoriented, shadowed by disbelief. Everything blurred, faces, voices, the fear hanging like a fog. He blinked, trying to ground himself. The shattered shards of the vase glinted ominously, as if mocking him. What had just happened? "Get back!" the officer yelled, rushing towards the chaos. Jonathan leaped to his feet, defensive, eyes darting. Lily, wide-eyed, stood frozen near the door, her innocence piercing through the storm. "Lily, come here," Jonathan shouted, a surge of desperation in his tone. Daniel staggered to his feet, urgency clawing at his throat. "Don't move," he warned both of them, gravelly revelations sweeping over him. There was something deeper here, something swirling beneath their feet. Before he could form a thought, another blast echoed, rattling the walls. "Who's shooting?" Sarah hissed, panic stripping her voice bare. Her eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the madness around them. Then, without warning, the door crashed open again. More officers surged in, but they weren't alone. Behind them was a figure with a familiar silhouette, unmistakable. "Dr. Evans?" Daniel's voice cracked as he stepped closer. The specialist's face, usually composed, was drenched in unease. But there wasn't time for questions. More shouts filled the air as chaos spilled into the room. Officers barked commands while Jonathan backed away, still shielding. Lily, fists clenched in anger and fear. Then Dr. Evans produced a small device, a compact box that pulsed ominously in his hand. "I didn't want to believe it," he said breathlessly, eyes darting between Daniel and Jonathan. "But it's true. We've been tracking something, and it leads back to you, Daniel." "What are you talking about?" Daniel snapped, enraged by the implication. Nothing made sense. "What do you mean, it leads back to me?" But Dr. Evans didn't respond. Instead, he leaned closer to Jonathan, urgency tightening his features. "The child, it's not just a case anymore. She's part of something bigger, something they want." A massive swell of confusion gripped Daniel. His chest tightened. "What do you mean? Why would they want her?" "Because she's not just Jonathan's daughter. She has abilities." Dr. Evans trailed off, the weight of his words sinking into the room. "Abilities?" Sarah echoed, disbelief suffusing her tone. "Yes," Dr. Evans continued, voice tense. "The genetics. It's all intertwined with a project gone wrong. Lily is not who we thought. She's the key to something much more dangerous." The air crackled with tension. Daniel's mind reeled. "What?" Suddenly, Lily's shaky voice broke through the chaos. Soft, yet powerful. "I'm scared." Everything froze. The world shifted under Daniel's feet. He looked at her, wide-eyed, his heart twisting. "Lily, it's okay." But her gaze turned haunting. "I'm not his," she whispered, a small tear rolling down her cheek. "I don't belong here." Those words shattered him, summoning a terrible realization rooted deep within. It wasn't just about her parentage anymore. It was about identity, about purpose. Around him, the room burst with quiet gasps. "What do you mean?" Jonathan's voice cracked, moving between disbelief and fear. Lily looked at him directly. "I'm from a lab. They created me." A wave of horror washed over Daniel. Everything he thought he knew flipped upside down. She was a product of science, not love. The deep connections were forged on fragile foundations. Dr. Evans' eyes widened, shock painting his face. "This changes everything." "How could you let this happen?" Jonathan roared, a primal fear erupting from his chest. Before another word could be spoken, the walls trembled as another sound pierced the air, a thud, followed by familiar pounding footsteps enveloping them in a haze of terror. All eyes snapped to the door as it swung open again. More figures appeared, cloaked in darkness, intent on taking what they deemed theirs. "Run!" Daniel shouted, urgency igniting his voice. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. What had he stepped into? And how far would he have to go to protect her? As shadows loomed, the stark truth burned in his gut. The answers didn't lie in safety. The danger had only just started. Chaos erupted, shadows creeping closer, as Daniel turned to face the approaching figures. They were tall and forbidding, uniforms taut against their bodies. The air felt charged, heavy with unsaid words and mounting dread. "Run!" Daniel shouted again, gripping Lily's arm, pulling her towards the back exit. Jonathan stood frozen, a protective wall still between the officers and his daughter. They can't take her, Jonathan yelled, voice raw with fear. Not after all. Jonathan, we don't have time, Daniel barked, urgency crackling through him. Lily's small hand trembled in his grasp. We need to get out of here now. But before they could make a break for it, another crash echoed down the hallway. From behind them, Sarah grabbed Daniel's arm, eyes wide, desperation etched into her features. She's not safe. None of us are. Then everything unraveled. The forward momentum faltered as the dark figures poured into the room, faces obscured in shadow, eyes glinting with authority. Nobody move, one officer ordered, voice booming. We have reason to believe. Then in a shocking twist, a familiar figure stepped into view behind the officers. Spearheading the advance was Dr. Evans, his face twisting into something unrecognizable. We don't have time for this, he shouted, emotion shaking his voice. If they get her, it's over. Lily's eyes flared with confusion and fear. Why do they want me? She whispered, tightening her grip on Daniel's hand. This has to stop, Dr. Evans snapped, glaring now at Jonathan. The conversation shifted suddenly, throwing everything into disarray. Your secrets will get us all killed. You need to tell them the truth. Shut up, Jonathan seethed, but the fear in his eyes suggested he understood the weight of the words. Don't say anything. But before Jonathan could interject further, the officer closed the distance, scowling. Dr. Evans, if you have knowledge about this child, I have more than you think, he interrupted, desperation rising in his tone. More than you can possibly understand. What are you talking about? Daniel pressed, the world swaying around him. By now, tension curled so tightly it felt like a live wire. Lily is connected to a covert operation, something personal, vastly important, and there are consequences. Dr. Evans' eyes darted, as if assessing the hidden dangers surrounding them. But it's not just about her. It involves all of you, more than you can imagine. A cold shiver snaked down Daniel's spine. What do?
You mean? He demanded, pressing into the chaos, fear rushing over him like a tidal wave. Suddenly, as he pushed toward Dr. Evans for answers, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. Shouts filled the air, panic rippled through the guests, and the officer's voice rang out, unmistakable in its urgency. Everyone stay calm. We need to secure the premises. Get down, another voice yelled, and that's when the gunfire erupted. Everything froze for a split second. Then the world exploded into chaos. Daniel dove instinctively, pulling Lily to the floor. The air filled with screams and terror as bullets ricocheted off walls, fragments of plaster raining down like confetti in a nightmare. What's happening? Lily cried, fear cracking her voice. Alarm. The black edges of the room. Figures scrambled. Daniel's heart raced. He turned to find Sarah, her eyes wide with desperation, as everything turned upside down. This isn't what I signed up for, she shouted, grappling with confusion and panic. But in the middle of the chaos came another shocking twist. A hidden door slid open behind Jonathan, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. Go down there, Jonathan urged, face pale but resolute. You'll be safe. Are you crazy? Daniel shouted, torn between instinct and fear. What if it's worse? But before Jonathan could respond, everything around them shifted once more. As the dust settled slightly, Daniel heard a familiar voice call out, a voice he'd never expected. Daniel, I'm here. It was his sister, Emma, rushing in from the haze of chaos, face drawn tight with urgency. Her presence sent shockwaves through him. Emma? Daniel's voice barely rose above the pandemonium. What are you doing here? Some things must come to light, she yelled, frantically moving closer. It's bigger than you know. The door behind him slammed shut, sealing their escape. As the chaos roared around him, Daniel's heart pounded. Who could he trust? Every secret cracked open wider. Then the lights flickered back on, revealing faces that mirrored his own horror. The truth was coming. But how could he handle it? Emma stepped forward, a mixture of relief and fear in her eyes. You're in danger, Daniel. We all are. We need to leave. Right now. And in that moment, something deep inside him shifted.
Everything he'd built depended on truths he hadn't even begun to grasp. But the danger closing in left no time for hesitation. No time for anything but a leap into the unknown. He glanced at Lily, still frightened, yet determined. The walls felt thick with betrayal. How many lies had he woven around his identity? As the noise from outside intensified, Daniel knew the game had twisted beyond recognition. But where would it lead? And who would be left standing once the dust finally settled? Everything froze in that moment, the chaos folding in around them. Daniel's heart thundered in his chest as he stared at Emma. She looked desperate, every bit the sister who had been his anchor in a storm. But this was beyond anything they had ever faced together. "Emma," he called, urgency coursing through him. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Before she could respond, the sounds of gunfire echoed again, loud and deadly. The officers shouted commands, trying to regain control, but the chaos was creeping closer. Daniel felt a surge of dread, something dark coiling in his gut. "Daniel, we need to go," Emma urged, pulling him closer. "Before it's too late." The fear in her voice was palpable. He looked back at Lily, her small frame trembling. The sweet child he had fought so fiercely for now looked as terrified as he felt. And Jonathan, still torn between rage and protectiveness, shifted uneasily, the weight of the world crashing down on him. "Come on." Sarah grabbed Daniel's arm, her eyes wide with a mix of determination and fear. But before anyone could react, an explosion rattled the air around them. The windows shattered, raining glass like deadly confetti. A smoky haze filled the room, the world spiraling into confusion and panic. "Stay down," Jonathan shouted, covering Lily as they all dropped. Daniel's heart raced as he heard the frantic thud of footsteps outside, voices shouting incoherently. "Who are they?" Daniel whispered, the words barely escaping his lips. "I don't know," Emma cried, pulling him closer. "But we can't stay here. This is bigger than us." But then, just as quickly as it had begun, everything changed. A figure darted through the chaos, slipping past the officers. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as the figure came into view. A striking woman with intense, piercing eyes. "Stop!" The command rang through the air as she brandished a badge. "Police! Everyone stand down!" Suddenly, the officers hesitated, confusion rippling like a wave. "What's going on?" one of them shouted, glancing back at her. "Get back," she urged, moving through them like a wraith. But the moment she locked eyes with Lily, Daniel felt a jolt ripple through him. It was a strange recognition, an inexplicable connection that sparked in the air between them. "Lily, it's okay," the woman said softly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm here to help you." "Help?" Jonathan's face twisted with disbelief. "Who are you? What do you want with her?" "I'm with the agency," she said, glancing knowingly at Dr. Evans. "And I've come to retrieve my daughter." The words landed like a bombshell, shattering the air of urgency. "What?" Daniel's voice trembled, disbelief heavy in the air. "She's my daughter, Jonathan," the woman insisted, her tone sharp with the weight of truth. "And you've put her in danger. You need to let her go." Every ounce of certainty unraveled. The room spun on its axis. Daniel's mind raced, trying to process what he'd just heard. Lily was not just wrapped up in Jonathan's world. She belonged to someone else. The chaos around him dulled, everything fading except for that one piercing reality. Lily's eyes grew wide, confusion and fear painting her face. "No, I'm not," she cried, shaking her head. "I'm not yours." Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. What does she mean? Before another word could surfacing, the tension ignited like an explosion. The officers began pushing back towards their original position, the confusion overwhelming them. The room held its breath as questions hung heavily in the air. "Lily," Jonathan's voice cracked, his world crumbling. "No." But a spark of realization ignited within Daniel. If this woman was telling the truth, everything he thought he understood had changed dramatically. Who was this woman?
What horrifying truths lay buried beneath layers of secrecy? Lily trembled, her small hands gripping Daniel's.
"No one wants me," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't know who I am." The weight of those words made Daniel's heart squeeze painfully. As chaos threatened to overtake them once more, the woman stepped closer, her gaze fierce and protective. "You know who she is, Daniel, and it's time for you to choose. Are you ready to protect her, no matter the cost?" The stakes had shifted, the lines drawn. Everything teetered on the brink of a new and unexpected reality. Where would this take them? Would Daniel dare to plunge into the shadows? "Are you ready to protect her, no matter the cost?" The woman's voice sliced through the chaos, cutting deep into Daniel's brain. It felt like a challenge, a weighty provocation, echoing all around them. The world swirled, blurred. Jonathan's face twisted in disbelief, anger twisted with protectiveness. "Stop! You're not taking her." Jonathan's voice rang out, fierce and primal, but Daniel could see the doubt flickering in his eyes. "Lily, you have to trust me," the woman urged, stepping closer, her fierce gaze fixed on Lily. "We're running out of time." Lily's face crinkled, confusion flooding her small features. "Who are you?" she asked. "I don't want to go anywhere." "Lily," Daniel said, feeling the weight of her fear tug at his heart. "We have to listen." But just then, the door behind them slammed open, smoke pouring in like a dark fog. An officer rushed in, face pale, eyes wide. "They're coming! We have to move, now!" Pandemonium erupted. The officers turned, their authority wavering in the face of chaos. Daniel's heart pounded as he looked between them all. Jonathan, Lily, Emma, Sarah. It was a tangled web of fear and urgency, every element coated with unsettling tension. "Follow me," the officer yelled again, urgency lacing his words. Daniel felt a tug in his gut, screaming at him to go quickly, to act. But the moment felt suspended in time, like everything was clinging to balance on a razor's edge. Then, in a flash, everything shifted. A piercing cry sliced through the air, a shrill scream, like a knife through the fragile silence. Out of nowhere, a man burst into the room, shirt torn, breath ragged, eyes wild with panic. "They're here. They found me." His words struck like a thunderclap. The tension exploded into chaos. The officer whipped around. "What do you mean? I don't have time," the man gasped, eyes darting. "They know about Lily. They know everything." A collective gasp echoed, harsh and sharp between them. Daniel felt the room tilt, reality shredding at the seams. The woman's face paled, her earlier confidence disintegrating into fear. "What are you talking about?" Emma demanded, her voice trembling, confusion swirling. "The experiment. It's bigger than you know. It's not just about her, it's about all of us." The man's voice shook, panic spilling into every word. "Experiment?" Jonathan's voice trembled now, disbelief splintering his features. What experiment? But the man could only shake his head, panic overtaking him. "They're coming. We need to go, or we'll never get out of here." Daniel's heart thundered. Was this real? Was everything unraveling before him? And then, Lily, her little voice cutting through the chaos, trembling but fierce. "But I don't want to be a part of it. I just want to be normal." But before anyone could reassure her, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway, deep and menacing, like thunder approaching. Soldiers poured into the mansion, clad in black tactical gear, faces stern, weapons drawn. "Hands up, everyone!" they shouted, voices booming, drowning out the chaos. Daniel felt his mind scramble. The churning in his gut became a storm. Jonathan's eyes flared with anger and fear. "Get away from her!" he yelled, stepping protectively in front of Lily, the primal instinct of a father surging within him. But before he could act, a flash of recognition crossed the man's face. "No, don't." In that instant, everything exploded. Gunshots rang out, shouts and screams filled the air. Daniel felt the shockwave of dread grip him, pulling him into a dark spiral.
He grabbed Lily and pulled her close, shielding her as he ducked down. But as debris rained down, a revelation struck him like lightning. In the midst of the chaos, Daniel spotted the woman from earlier, her expression transforming before his eyes, a twist of fear morphing into something fierce. And there it was. A glimmer of recognition flickered between them. "Him," she cried, her voice breaking through the chaos, directing her gaze at the man who had burst in moments ago. "He's not just an informant. He's part of the operation." "What?" Daniel exclaimed, confusion blanketing him, but the words fell heavy and empty as he turned to see the realization skitter across Jonathan's face. The man who had entered, was he an ally or a traitor? "Get back!" the soldier shouted again, pushing them further into the room. But chaos roared through Daniel's mind. The web of deceit tightened, the shadows closing in. Each truth felt more tangled than the last. His head spun wildly. Who was telling the truth? What lies had he absorbed? The flash of gunfire lit the chaos, shadows dancing like phantoms. In that moment, everything flipped upside down. Trust felt like a distant memory, and danger was lurking just behind them. "Run!" the woman screamed, urgent and fierce. But before they could move, a deafening blast shattered the air. The walls quaked, and Daniel felt a dizzying pull. As the debris fell around them, and the echoes of chaos enveloped him, every truth Daniel held rattled in his heart. Nothing was safe anymore. Was this the end, or just the beginning? With fear coursing through him, he turned toward Lily, feeling the weight of everything shift, secrets wrapped around them like a suffocating shroud. And as darkness pulled around the edges of his vision, Daniel knew one thing: the game was only just beginning. As darkness closed in, the fear wrapped around Daniel like a heavy blanket. He clutched Lily to him, feeling her tiny body tremble. Their breaths came in short gasps, fraying nerves screaming for escape. Gunfire still echoed, chaos swirling with heavy smoke. Daniel felt the weight of uncertainty crushing him. "We have to go," he shouted, but his voice barely rose above the din. The woman standing beside Jonathan was fierce. "I'll protect her," she yelled, taking a step forward, eyes locked on the approaching figures. The tension crackled through the air. Yet before anyone could act, the sound of breaking glass shattered their attention. A scream pierced the chaos, a raw, guttural sound that curled Daniel's stomach into knots. From outside, shadows surged through the doorway, and suddenly the air filled with voices. They were here. The officer nearest to him cursed, the look on his face shifting to an expression of stark dread. "They're coming in." He glanced at his team, all caught between instincts of duty and fear. "Run!" shouted Jonathan again, pushing Lily behind him, a fierce look burning in his eyes. Daniel's heart pounded, dread blooming inside him. He couldn't leave them. They had to stick together. But as they moved toward the back door, a flash of light erupted. Someone barged in, more soldiers flooding the room, overwhelming numbers. The color drained from the officers' faces. They were completely outmatched. "Get down!" one soldier yelled, panic slicing through his voice as he dove to the floor. Then, amidst the chaos, something bizarre erupted from the unexpected ruckus. Daniel's eyes widened as the newcomer, a woman with a fierce glare, spun around, locking sights on Lily. "No!" she screamed, lunging toward them. "Get away from her!" Daniel recoiled. The room froze for a heartbeat, breaths catching in throats. Who was this woman? A friend? A foe? Her voice twisted through the crowd like a tempest. Without warning, she turned to Dr. Evans. "You lied. You didn't tell them." Her words cut through the fear, igniting confusion. "What are you talking about?" Dr. Evans demanded, panic flickering across his face. "What do you mean?" Then, beyond the chaos, something even more shocking happened. The floor beneath them trembled, the chandeliers rattling ominously. The walls seemed to shift, revealing a hidden compartment, a panel sliding open. A small crowd gasped in unison. From the shadows emerged a young girl, no older than Lily, with deep, knowing eyes, eyes that held secrets, echoed with emotions untold. "Lily, I'm here," she called, urgency spilling from her lips. threading through the chaos like a lifeline. Daniel froze, breath hitching. "Who are you?" He couldn't grasp the significance. The woman turned, shock transforming her features. "No, it can't be." But the young girl rushed forward, fearlessly crossing the threshold. "I know who you are. I know who I am." Her voice rang chime-like, cutting through the din. It felt electric, alive. Jonathan succumbed to the growing dread. "What do you mean? Who are you?" And then the girl's eyes locked onto Lily, shining a dangerous mixture of clarity and pain. "I'm your sister." Daniel's heart lurched. The air thickened, suffocating him as a tidal wave of shock swept through the room. "Sister?" he echoed. Disbelief tinged with confusion. Lily's face fell, innocence unraveling before his eyes. "No, that's impossible." But the girl nodded earnestly, cheeks streaked with dirt. "I was hidden by them. I had to escape." Gasps filled the room, shifting like leaves before a storm. The soldiers shifted, caught between confusion and shock. What had they stumbled into? Reality shattered like glass, leaving only shards behind. Every secret Daniel held twisted, spinning wildly. Who was telling the truth? Then, as if the world was collapsing around them, the young girl turned to Daniel. "You're in danger. They found us." Daniel's heart raced. The storm was only brewing. Everything he thought he understood lay in ruins. Fear surged. This was only the beginning. "Run!" Sarah shouted, a flicker of urgency igniting within her. But as they turned to flee, the room erupted all over again, voices blending into a cacophony of chaos. What lay beyond that door? Was safety even possible? As they raced forward, Daniel felt the haunting fear grip him tighter than ever before. There were even more secrets just below the surface, waiting to rise back to the surface. What else would come crashing down? And could they ever truly escape? Lily's words hung heavily in the air, electrifying the room as time stood still. "I'm your sister." The weight of her declaration shattered Daniel's heart into 1,000 jagged pieces. "No!" Jonathan's voice cracked, disbelief contorting his face. He turned to Lily, searching for answers, but his daughter's wide eyes reflected fear and confusion. How could this be true? The chaos around them morphed into a blurry backdrop, both terrifying and surreal. The soldiers pushed forward, their weapons poised, haunted by uncertainty. Daniel felt a swell of anger rise inside him. "Stop! We're not your enemies." But the young girl crossed the room, unwavering. The girl who claimed to be Lily's sister reached out to her. Desperation etched into her features. "We need to escape before it's too late." Daniel's gut twisted. Escape? What stark reality lay beneath this revelation? Was the girl truly her sister, or had the shadows conspired to entrap them all? "Enough!" the commanding officer barked, his voice booming. "Everyone on the ground!" "Now!" Lily clutched Daniel's arm, her tiny fingers trembling. "What do we do?" Without missing a beat, Emma shouted, "Follow me." She dashed to the hidden passage that had opened amidst the chaos, beckoning for Daniel and Lily to hurry. Before they could move, gunfire erupted, ricocheting off the walls. The world fell into panic. Jonathan pushed the girls down low, shielding them with his own body. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had to protect them. The tension crackled. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. This was it. The wallpaper peeled away from the edges, revealing the true grimy fabric of their reality. "Go!" Daniel shouted, ushering them forward. He felt the adrenaline surge, pulsating through him. "We won't let them take you." In the rush, the girl turned to Lily one last time. "Trust me, I'll get you out of this." They raced down the corridor, hearts pounding, the shadows of the mansion chasing after them. The sounds of chaos vibrated in their ears, a storm brewing behind them. Emerging into a dimly lit space, they stumbled through the exit. The cool night air hit them like a slap, freeing them from the confines of the mansion's suffocating grip. But outside, the scene was even more chaotic. "Get in the car," Emma pointed toward an old vehicle parked under a flickering streetlight. They jumped inside, fear propelling them forward as Daniel fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. Come on, come on!" When the engine roared to life, it felt like magic.
like the chance of escape from the clutches of fate. But as they sped away, sirens blared around them. The world outside was a blur of lights and sounds, shadows chasing in the rearview mirror.
"Where to?" Jonathan shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Anywhere but here," Daniel replied fiercely. Memories of the mansion twisted his stomach, the horrors they had uncovered. The truth might be darker, but there had to be a way out. A glance exchanged between Lily and her sister, the flicker of recognition mixed with uncertainty. But in that moment, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. They weren't just fighting for freedom. They were carving a path toward truth, however murky. As they raced down the darkened streets, the sirens receding in the distance, Daniel realized this was just the beginning. He had a family to protect, secrets to untangle. A surge of fierce determination coursed through him. Together, they would find their way, not just from danger, but toward who they were meant to be. And in that moment, one truth hardened inside him. No matter the odds, they would face whatever lay ahead, together. This is your moment. If you want to dive deeper into this thrilling saga and explore the next exclusive stories, you have to subscribe right now. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and keep this story safe. Show your support. This is the moment to act. Let us know what you think. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends.